So, hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of In Conversation With. My name is Jon Lunn, aka Jonnychipz, and in this video series, we talk all things cloud with experts and advocates from right across the industry, covering a wide variety of topics from skills and careers through to technical overviews and softer skills. So whether you're watching this on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter or LinkedIn, thanks so much for tuning in, and it really is appreciated. Please do take part in the chat below. Drop us a comment, a like and a subscribe. That would be awesome. On that note, my next guest is a Microsoft 365 principal consultant at CDW UK at the moment. He's a Microsoft certified trainer, a meetup organizer, podcaster and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So based in Sittingbourne in the UK, I'm thrilled to welcome my next guest on In Conversation With, Mr. Jon Jarvis. How you doing, Jon? Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Jon. Jon, yeah, it's an honour to be a guest on your show today. Been a fan for a long time. I think I remember messaging you, I think about a year or so back, saying like I really love the shows and stuff. So yeah, good honour to be here, and I'm really impressed you didn't mess up the introduction once on the recording. So
I usually do, Jon. Well, look, obviously, it's all my pleasure. Thanks for giving up your time to come on and say hello. And yeah, I mean, it's surprising. We've been in contact on and off over the last year with community and what you've been up to. And obviously you've been up to some great stuff in the community yourself, Jon. So yeah, I mean, the pleasure is all mine. Like I say, thanks for coming on and saying hello to me. So look, we've got a few little areas to talk around, but before we do that, I don't know if you want to broaden out your introduction a little bit, Jon, and let us know what life's like working with cloud technology for you. Give us a bit of a potted history of your career, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. Kind of, as you said in the intro, I'm a principal consultant at CDW, kind of working in everything Microsoft 365 at the moment. Have my interest in it and like not so much interest in it, but kind of all stemmed back. I think been working IT for, looking at the date on my clock, about 15 or so years now. Been kind of like a lot of people, I didn't really like education too much. I wasn't really like as soon as I got out of secondary school, didn't really like college, I didn't ever really want to go to university or anything like that. And as I said, I was hopefully, I think, a clever person, but just education wasn't my thing. I think went to work, just doing some temping jobs in London, and then find myself in IT, which is something I always wanted to do since school. My mum and dad kind of tell tales of me getting told off at nursery for being on the computer for too long on one computer. Then I'd run down the other end of the nursery and then be on the other one for another hour or so. So
I'm impressed. I'm impressed that you say nursery, Jon. To be honest, that's impressive in its own.
Why is that?
Well, I'm imagining a little small child in a nappy running around between all these computers. Now I've got this.
That's what I was doing. Like working with computers, doing computer stuff has been with me since that age, which is
that's amazing. Yeah.
But I think I always wanted to do, but I don't know, like most kids, like through school and college, no one really, everyone goes, oh, I want to work on computers. But
yeah,
I think back then, like I'm talking, I went to school like nearly 20, just over 20 years ago, 98, I started in secondary school. Like no one knows what working on IT is. Like even at that age, no one, is it coding? Is it this? Is it working at a big data center for the computers? Like, I don't think when we were at our age, there was really that type of like focus what you want. So I never knew what I wanted to do. It might have been like even web design. I loved a little bit of web design when I was younger, until I realized I couldn't really code too well. So then I took my first job in IT was a junior web designer, and I didn't actually do any web designing whatsoever. They were like, Jon, we just need you to help out with the computers. And then that's how I just ended up just helping out with like it's an advertising agency at the time. So it's like working with Apple Macs and people with issues there. And then kind of went on to a shop, worked for a shop for a year. I think like most IT people probably worked in a shop at some point, fixing computers and stuff like that, and then went on to into like the whole first line, second line like way of working. But I've been a consultant now for 10 years. Started at a company called B2 Lateral, which is no longer a company. So I'm looking at dates just to remind myself of the dates. Yeah, about 10 or so years ago. But I've been at CDW now for 7 years. Worked through the ranks as a technical consultant, senior consultant, up to now to principal consultant. And I think kind of like I say a lot to guests on my podcast that you kind of go into the Microsoft 365 space like 10 years ago, either in two different ways. You either go through the Exchange Online route or you go through the SharePoint Online route. Like that would seem to be like the migration points into Office 365, and what made it such a big thing at the time was either you're doing hybrid migrations into Exchange, and I spent many years doing that, or you're doing like SharePoint migrations using ShareGate or whatever Metalogix, whatever products there is. The migrations, and that's kind of where we are now. Been doing a lot of endpoint manager with for the past 4 years, lots of Intune and stuff for the past 4 years, and that's kind of where I really enjoy at the moment is the endpoint manager stuff.
I mean, it's interesting you say about that whole thing into 365 because I remember back in the day, about 10 years ago, where Exchange migrations were the thing to be doing at the time. And you're right that it's kind of that ecosystem in 365 has kind of pulled customers in and all of a sudden given them this kind of massive library of tools and feature sets that they can work from. I mean, I can kind of understand how you got into that, but I mean, for our viewers now, could you describe, the kind of differences on, when we were in that kind of on-premise, kind of private data center world, managing and feeding and watering those kinds of applications, what that transition was like as maybe not just as a consultant doing the work, but maybe for end users and IT people that worked for particular businesses. What was that transition like into the cloud?
Well, like for myself, I start off as a consultant. I'm quite a progressive person, so I was like, this cloud thing is amazing. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. But I think a lot of companies going into Office 365 didn't really at that time understand like the full benefits of it. Like they go into Exchange Online, they just saw, okay, I don't have 6, 8, 10 Exchange servers anymore. Like I've got the cost of that. I've got a service which should always be on, and that's it. But then I've always been an advocate of like, there's so much more. Like there's not just Exchange Online. At the time you had OneDrive, you had SharePoint, you had all the applications and stuff under one place. So for users, I think the story told to them is like, oh, you're getting migrated to Office 365. You're gonna have a bigger mailbox. And
and that was still more email.
that was a dream that users were kind of like were taken on. To be fair, like there wasn't really much else at the time where I feel a lot of companies weren't driving the full Office 365 or now Microsoft 365 capabilities, which I think a lot of people now are doing with all the other technologies, such as like people using Sway a lot more, Stream a lot more, and a lot of the other technologies in there now as well.
Oh, you're right. I remember at the time, it used to be a thing that I think when the enterprise SKUs came out and you could license your Office Pro Plus via this SKU, lots of companies weren't aware of even that, and you were thinking, wow, you're going to go off and spend all that money and not realize. And I guess we're possibly at that point still even now. I mean, myself personally, John, I've been slightly away from the 365 world for a few years now because I kind of turned to focus a little bit more on Azure personally with my day job. So I remember there being a time where, you would buy, I mean, look, Microsoft licensing is always a bit of a taboo, tongue-in-cheek subject to speak about, but certainly when it comes to 365, because I remember there being a time where there would be business SKUs, enterprise SKUs, bolt-on SKUs, add-ons. Are we still in that world with 365, or have Microsoft kind of brought it together? I'm sensing no.
No, we are. We are fully still there with like quite a lot of customers. I had a customer this morning I was looking at. They had different SKUs all over the place. They had Teams Exploratory, E1 licenses here, Exchange Online migration like licenses in there. But a lot of them, I think, I mean, I don't, as quite rightly said, it is a dark art, Microsoft licensing. I think they're kind of starting to do a lot more to bring it together now. So the Microsoft 365 E3 and E5 licenses are like the main sellers now to enterprises. And you're finding now that the cost of the E3 and the E5 licenses aren't too much more than a couple of them bolted on together anyway. So it's a bit like, well, I had a customer, I think last week, there was like, oh, 15 grand more. I get like a year, I get this much more. Then I was like, yeah, that's it. And they're like, oh yeah, we might as well do that then. I was like, yeah, you might as well.
Yeah, and I guess part of it is down to the actual back to that functionality. So it's all fair and well paying X amount for particular licensing, but I guess it's understanding with the fast pace of change that's going on across the industry and certainly around 365, the new product sets. Are you finding that that's a continual journey at the moment, John, with understanding the feature sets and the functionality that's being put out in 365?
Another thing I'm going to put out for example is Defender for is Defender in general. Everyone knows that everything seems to be changing its name to Defender for something now.
Yeah.
But I was on, as I said, just before this, I was on a call to a customer about Defender for Endpoint, and I don't think I've used it in depth for the past like month or two. And going into it now, everything seems to have changed. I was like, okay, this has changed to this, and they were like, can you just show us where this bit here is? I was like, to be honest, no, I don't know. like everything has things have changed. Like the web content filtering has kind of changed on it. Like how you block certain things, and monitor things have changed. So you need to give me a couple of minutes on it just to go through and check. But Microsoft, I think are doing an amazing job in terms of bringing everything together. Like a security platform for me is one of the best. I really enjoy kind of like working on the security side of things as well. And the compliance side of things, like if it's the sensitivity labels, DLP, retention policies, and stuff like that, I kind of a bit of a jack of all trades with it, or if you get what I mean. I like to know a little bit of everything, just to keep my mind ticking. I love learning. Like as I said, I didn't like education in terms of sitting in something in a college, but if you sit me in front of like something Power Platforms, for example, I will spend 2 hours just lost in it, trying to figure out everything, looking at videos and looking at the internet, just trying to learn it. So I'll get a bit of addictive personality when it comes to learning tech stuff.
Oh no, but I think that's a great kind of trait to have. If from my perspective, I know that I don't know. I know people are different and people see things in different ways, but I think my own view of the industry today. It's been difficult to, I guess, become that subject matter expert to a certain extent, because at the end of the day, 365 now is commodity with, your overlay specialism being in a particular area. But then, equally, these are things that the customers can't, could potentially figure out for themselves, especially with, you talk about the Power Platform and the fact that it is meant to be low code, no code to bring on, your citizen developer, so to speak. All of a sudden, it's, you're kind of saying to customers, yeah, you just got to go and do what you need to do with that. Do we become trainers? That broad knowledge, I think, is, from my perspective, is inevitable in the industry at the moment, because you need to kind of know how things align with each other. Do you see things that way, John, or do you see it differently?
No, I do see it that way. Funny you said earlier about the Power Platforms being no code. I don't know coding whatsoever. So when it comes to that could be C++ to me.
No.
Yeah, as you said, like I think having a broad knowledge of everything is something I think nearly a lot of people will need to know. I think the world of consulting is going to change a lot in the next 10, 15 years. As you alluded to, you think most people will be able to kind of figure things out for themselves. I don't think consultancy is going to be kind of like these 15, 20, 30 day plus 100-day projects anymore. It's going to be more kind of like you are consulting. You're going to be showing like your customers how to do things, how like a bit more of a more chalk and talks than actually delivering stuff. It's going to be kind of this is how you do it. These are the best practices that we've kind of seen. You might know how to click around and stuff, but maybe we might be able to show you things that go together and join up. I think that's where consultancies go in, to be honest. It's not going to be these like cookie cutter 10-day things where you're deploying things for a certain amount of time. But that's where I see the industry going. It might not happen. Like I think it depends. With that side of things, I think you're gonna have a totally different side of consultant as well. You're gonna need people that are got the soft skills, can present, are comfortable with with all of that side of things as well. But it's going to be big. It's going to be a big change. I think a big change.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, it's exciting, especially if you are quite happy to stay on top of the continual change that we're faced with on a daily basis. Then great. But so I mean, just to change track slightly, then, John. So I mean, we talked about your career. We talked about what you're doing at the moment in the world of 365. You're also massively into community yourself, John, and you've got a user group and a podcast that you're running at the moment, which is the Microsoft Spotlight. Tell me a little bit about that. What are you up to there?
Well, this journey for the Spotlight, Microsoft Spotlight podcast, and now user group, started probably 2 years ago. I was interviewing for actually longer than that. I was interviewing for a job within my team for a senior technical consultant, and I met Andrew Moran, formerly Price, and he was talking about kind of things. He's saying he was a former MVP, and when you kind of spoke to him a bit more, he's like, oh, I really want to do this podcast where we go into basically what you're doing now with your own conversations, have conversations with people, and with MVPs, see kind of what they've done to get there, and have like just a spotlight on these people. I was like, yeah, that's great. Like, I'd love to do that with you. That'd be something really cool. I love podcasts where you're chatting to people and understanding people's stories. For me, like, people like Joe Rogan and I like Jack Mate, all different outside tech podcasts. It's all talking to people. Ben Foster's Fozcast, who's the footballer. I love these like ones where they're talking to people. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. That sounds really cool. Got talking a bit more, and it's like, yeah, when are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? And Andrew's like, oh, we'll do it soon. Bugged him so much that he's finally went, okay, we'll do it. Then as we got talking through this time as well, it was just like, I think we should have a bit more I think me and Andrew both discussed and said we need to have like a bit of a focus. So it was like, let's speak to women in tech. Let's talk about their stories and try to like highlight and put the spotlight on women in tech. We are 30 episodes in, and we've done 30 different podcasts with 30 different women, and we've now, I think, become like the podcast which speaks to women in tech, which is amazing. Like, a lot of people say that me and Andrew are like allies and stuff like this for women in tech, and it's just something I feel quite uncomfortable with that. Like, I just feel like I'm doing a podcast because I love the stories, and I love listening to these women in tech and how they kind of got into IT, because it's completely different to myself. Like, I think I've always known that, as I said earlier, I've always known I wanted to go into IT in some way, but I think every single story is completely different. All 30 women, some of them have been in working in vets, some of them have been babysitters, Pilates instructors, pharmaceuticals, working for hotels. Like, every single story is completely different. Like, everyone's got a completely different origin story. And we've come after a year. 30. We've just recorded episode 31 last week. And yeah, it's been a great journey. We spoke at the South Coast Summit last year, where we done like a round table with for women in tech. And that experience itself was amazing. Like, we had guys in the audience like standing up saying like, what can I do more for women in tech? And it's just like a really like powerful. It's like a really powerful moment for us and the panel as well. And it was like, well, we don't really talk about tech whatsoever. Like, we don't talk about what people's feeling like. We don't bring tech into it. It's just about the person. And then it was like, well, let's start doing a tech one. Let's start doing a tech user group. So we started that in February. We're going to do one every quarter. Dean Ellaby, friend of yours and colleague of mine, featured on that alongside Luke Evans and Zoe Wilson. Zoe Wilson being one of our first guests as well. So got another one coming up in May, and then once a quarter. So it's been fun, interesting, and it's just great to be part of the Microsoft community, because I think it is one of the best communities in the world.
Oh, absolutely, and it just goes to show that the effort that you put into these things. Certainly, like you said, because one of the things I noticed about the podcast that you're doing, absolutely, it is almost like a bastion to kind of promote women in tech and inclusivity, which is a huge part of. I guess the world at the moment, it's becoming more and more not acceptable to leave, to kind of cast any, have any outcast, or that kind of minority group inclusivity thing is becoming more and more accepted, which is clearly a fantastic way that society is going at the moment. But I mean, when we turn to specifically about women in tech, what have you learned in doing this podcast series, John, in terms of how do we all, have you got any good hints or pointers for us all? We are very much massively heavily male dominated in our industry at the moment still. What would be the kind of key points that you picked out of speaking to a lot of people in tech that may have this view?
My number one thing is speak up. Don't be that person who's if you see something happening. Like, one of the main examples is you're in a chalk and talk session, you're in a workshop, and you're with a colleague who's female, or it doesn't have to be female, like female or anything else. If someone says something and people don't quite believe what they're saying because they're female, just go, speak up. Don't then go. So she goes, all right, this A is A, and then something. A CEO goes, "Are you sure?" Turns to you, goes, "Is A? Is that right?" What she said, no, speak up. Just say no, she's right. Don't she's got every single technical knowledge that I have. What? Don't ask me for a second opinion. Don't be afraid to speak up. I think that's kind of the main thing, really. Don't be afraid to speak up. If you have an opportunity for somebody, go out and ask. So I think something that Donna Sakar said on our roundtable is if you have a role for someone and you think that a female will be a great fit for it, and you've seen someone, go out and ask. Don't just kind of just expect. Go out and ask and try and really put something on yourself to make a difference as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a great sort of message to put out into the ethos almost, that it's one of those things. And I know a lot of male friends that I've spoken to is that they have this opinion of, well, look, I'm accepting of everybody. I don't go out my way to belittle or put somebody in their box or anything like that, whether they're male or female. And I guess, that's great. Obviously, that is fantastic. But equally, I guess the whole thing around women in tech is that almost it's about kind of like you guys are doing with your podcast. It's about shining the spotlight on some of these awesome women in technology that are doing great things, that for whatever reason there may be that unconscious bias within, again, generally within men, where I guess they're too quick to jump to a certain unconscious bias, which like you say, unless is kind of called out and kind of pointed out at the time, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? From my experience, again, speaking with some fantastic women in technology about this particular issue, I think as men sometimes, and again, we can only speak generally, but I think you kind of, people do have these unconscious bias where they may not mean anything by them, but it's just the way things are said, the wording that's used for specific things can be seen as.
Sorry, that's really interesting what you said there, about the wording and stuff like that. Is that one of the main things I think a lot of people look at now is for diversion and inclusivity is job descriptions. You go out and job descriptions, and unconsciously, I think there's a lot of bias in job descriptions and advertisements and stuff like that, which kind of pointed towards males. Like I think we had someone in on our podcast called Eddie King, and she said, like these JavaScript rock stars and like these, like knowledge kings and all this type of stuff. They unconsciously just give that bias to, we want a male to apply for this. And I think there's a lot more that can be done in the market on that side of things, that kind of like go that present a job that is, nice for anybody to apply, and not just a JavaScript rock star.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, and I guess that applies to everybody really, to kind of just be that bit more mindful about what we're saying, what we're putting out to the community, what we're advertising for, the wording that we're using. And I know, to certain people, they might seem this is a lot of effort, and to a certain extent it is. And it's one of those things that kind of has to be done in order to make sure that we are genuinely inclusive as an industry, and making sure that we do. And like I say, I mean, from my perspective, I think as an industry and as a society, we've come a massive way. But there's clearly a lot more that can be done at the moment, John. Yeah, I guess you see it the same way.
Yeah, but again, like society itself has, as you said, it's gone a long way, and I think the IT industry itself is probably head and shoulders above quite a lot of others, because as I said, I like to think that we've got a lot of clever people within the IT industry, and clever people generally have a lot more sense. So, like, as you said, it might be a little bit more. It might be a little bit more work, but again, I think it's worth it, having like every little bit of effort you put in and try to make a little bit of difference. It might help one person. If it helps that one person, it might help another. One thing kind of that we spoke about on the podcast a lot is kind of figureheads and people and people. We edit this bit out. It's like figureheads for people, for women to look at. And as I said, we've had people like Donna Sakar and Zoe Wilson, and we just need people like women to have people to look up to, like Karuna, for example, from Microsoft, Anna Shu, all these amazing people. We need more people, more women in the industry for people to look up to.
I know what you mean. Like that whole role model thing, isn't it? That whole role model. And one of the things that I've been, because I've got two young daughters, and one of the things that, obviously I'd love for anyone, if not both of my daughters, to kind of follow and be interested in STEM and engineering and technology. They're not, but, they're into other things, which is fine. But equally, I think, to kind of bring up that next generation, you're right. You need to have those kind of role models that young girls can kind of aspire to be, people that are kind of in the same image. And that's not just about sex. It's about everything. It's about race, sex. It's about whatever you need to have as a role model. It's about diversity, which is...
And also neurodiversity as well is a massive subject.
Absolutely.
We speak quite a lot about neurodiversity, dyslexia, and I think kind of, I keep saying her name, but something Donna Sakar said at the South Coast Summit, she done the keynote, and it was all about diversity and stuff. It's like every single person knows somebody with a hidden disability.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I've got, my son is colorblind, and like we've all got somebody who has something. So we need to be making a difference for women, people with neurodiversity, with hidden disabilities, color, everything. So I mean, my podcast, mine and Andrew's podcast is, we focus on women at the moment. It might change in the future, but just a little highlighting things that are not normal, like women in tech it's not seen as a normal thing, unfortunately. If we keep on highlighting this, let's make it normal. Let's make it so it's as fair and as equal for everybody. And that's the message, and I think that's what we're going to keep on trying to do.
Oh, absolutely, John. And yeah, like I say, well done and congratulations. You've hit some quite good milestones there in terms of the time that you've taken to publish all of these awesome podcasts, and how you're doing the user group sessions as well. So yeah, good luck with that in the future, and
Thank you.
Yeah, keep up the amazing work, John. It's great to see. So Look, you've been a fantastic guest. It's been some great topic areas we've had a chat around, John. But look, there's always one question I like to ask all my guests that come on this show. And everything we talked about, we talked about training and career progression and learning and inclusivity and obviously diversity in tech. Why are we doing all this, John? What's the next big thing from your perspective in technology? What would you place the next big bet on, do you think, from your perspective, John?
Well, I think I kind of alluded to earlier, but I'll go through the kind of journey on where we are at the moment. So like we've gone from mail and data and stuff like that going up to the cloud. You kind of work a lot in Azure and the IaaS space and getting the servers up into the and services up into the cloud. And I think kind of the next thing, and it's the thing that's been being played around a lot more, is obviously the power platforms, the power apps, the applications, and that's I think that's going to continue to be like the next big thing for the next couple of years. And I said I've been playing around with power platform myself a little bit, but I think that's like the next thing that everyone's going to just kind of be crying out for daily.
Yeah, just that kind of ingenuity, I guess, that chance to make something a little bit bespoke for the business that you work for.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many
platform.
Yeah, there's so many apps out there at the moment. Like I think Microsoft, I can't remember the number that Microsoft put onto it, but there's absolutely thousands of applications out there at the moment. Most of them like with some type of connectivity or integration with like an on-premise Active Directory or something like that. And on-premise AD, I think will be probably gone within 10 years. I don't see that being a thing within 10 years, thankfully, because I don't like it anymore. Azure AD is a lot nicer, but I think we'll be moving away from that on-prem capability for a long time, and therefore apps are going to have to go up and either be SaaS based or be a power platform app. And there's so much you can do with it at the moment. Like I'm impressed consistently with the things that it can do. And I remember Ignite 2019. I went to I can't remember who it was, to be fair. I think it was like a Swedish guy or something. He'd like built out like an expenses application right there, and I was like, "What the hell was this? I hadn't seen Power Apps before." And it was integrating into like Teams, and I was like, "Oh!" Since that day, I've been fascinated with it. So I don't know. Watch this space. Maybe I'll do a couple here and there, but, but yeah. That's what that's the one I'm fascinated with at the moment is Power Apps.
No, I think you're right. That innovation for business and making, getting to market quickly with an application that actually does something meaningful for the business you're working for is clearly going to be on the rise, which I guess that's the point of why Microsoft kind of developed that platform, is to encourage a lot more citizen developers that maybe don't have coding experience, which is fantastic. So I like your style, John. Yeah, I mean, it certainly is going to be one to watch out and keep an eye on now over the next few years, I guess. And like you, I mean, I've got colleagues that have kind of, watched a quick video on Power Apps or done a demo with it and thought, wow, actually, it is a powerful platform, as the name would suggest, and it's worth kind of getting into. So yeah, quite a cool area to kind of see grow, I guess, over the next few years.
And even Power Automate, there's so much things that you can do to make your life easier day to day. To be fair, like making buttons to do certain things, retweeting. There's a couple of things I've done internally, like just making the roadmap, Microsoft 365 roadmap, be broadcast onto Teams, like little things like that, just make things easier. But yeah. I really, as you can tell, quite enjoy it, but I'm not quite good to do it day to day as a consultant.
No, well, all in good time, I suppose, John? It takes time and practice like anything else.
Maybe.
Look, John, it's been super fun having you on. Thanks so much again for giving up your time and coming on. But are there any last parting words of wisdom you'd like to impart before we call it a day on this session?
No, I don't think wisdom is really my thing, but but really good to be here. Lovely chatting to you. I think we could have spoke for probably another hour or so. But yeah, it's good.
It's always the way, John. It is always the way, isn't it? There's always so much to talk about. But look, again, thanks for being an awesome guest, John, and I'll catch you on the socials fairly soon, no doubt.
Bye, John. Take care, buddy.
Ta-da.